I want you to take a moment and close your eyes. Now think of 5 of your closest friends. One of them will experience a mental health problem or illness this year. Open your eyes. For me, that person was my grandpa. He suffered from lung disease and depression. We lived together, and every day I would make sure that he had enough oxygen for his lungs, but I had no idea how to treat or even talk about his depression. My grandpa is not alone. Mental health is a complex balance affected by our surroundings, our past traumas, our minds, and our bodies. Mental illness is treatable, but our friends affected face immense challenges when navigating our healthcare system. My name is Raj, and I'm a researcher at the eBrain Lab at Simon Fraser University, led by Dr. Farzan. As a community-engaged engineering student, I've always wanted to make a big impact through technology. I remember building a wearable device to track my grandpa's oxygen level from my phone. I became fascinated by what the human body can tell us through its many rhythms and signals. But when I took a course on how to read from the brain and even change its behavior, it finally clicked. I realized I could help people like my grandpa by pursuing graduate studies in neuroengineering. I was thrilled to realize that we can combine neuroscience and engineering to uncover the human brain. And one application is to find better ways to treat and diagnose mental illness. But what's wrong with how we do it today? Well, if you've never experienced mental illness, it's hard to understand how the healthcare system works. So I'd like you to close your eyes and imagine a new scenario. You're lying on your bed with a horrible fever, so you force yourself to get up and ask a friend to get you some Tylenol. You take your dose, but after a few hours, you realize it's not working. Your fever is raging out of control, so your friend goes back to the pharmacy to get you another brand. Again, it doesn't quite work, and now you have strange side effects like nausea, weight gain, and even lower libido. Only after many, many tries do you find the right drug which stops the fever. Open your eyes. Wasn't that frustrating? This process of trial and error is typical for patients with mental illness, but instead of each treatment lasting a few hours, a single treatment can last for months to years. To make it worse, there are many different mental illnesses, and a single person can have multiple. Each disorder can have many different subtypes, and overlapping symptoms make diagnosis a nightmare. Bipolar disorder is one of the most difficult to diagnose. 70% of people with bipolar disorder are misdiagnosed initially, and 30% don't receive a correct diagnosis for an entire decade. Even when diagnosed correctly, finding the right treatment is daunting. For example, youth with depression have less than a 50% chance of success on their first round of antidepressants. It can take years and years of trying medication and therapy to find a treatment that actually works. Side effects are another major issue. One of the most effective treatments for someone who doesn't respond to medication is to actually induce a seizure. But the most common way to do this is through electroconvulsive therapy, which comes with the risk of memory loss. While many people do find a successful treatment, there are so many others who fall through the cracks. Remember, our mental health is shaped by this complex interaction of our internal biology and our external surroundings. But today I want to focus on our biology. We do not have a one-size-fits-all solution for mental illness because our brains and our bodies are so complex. Like cell phones on a network, there are many different ways that our 86 billion neurons talk to each other. And when groups of these brain cells are sending the wrong message, it can cause trouble. It's hard to figure out which connections are malfunctioning, so we often group unrelated problems together into the same disease. Combined with natural genetic variations across the population, it is no surprise that the same treatment can have different effects on different people. It's time to come up with a solution. What if we could create a simple, objective test, sort of like an eye exam, but for mental health? A test for the brain that could match patients to an effective and personalized treatment. Well, researchers around the world are working on it. To pinpoint these specific problems in the human brain, we need to unravel its incredible complexity and I'm so excited to share with you the unique challenges and technologies that shape this journey. At the core of our research is a safe and non-invasive technique called transcranial magnetic stimulation, or TMS for short. Transcranial means through the skull, so this technique passes a strong magnetic field through your skull to activate your brain. In fact, it works quite similar to wireless charging in cell phones. We place a wand near your head without actually touching it. Next, we charge up the coils of wire on the wand with a strong magnetic field. Suddenly, a targeted region of your brain lights up for just a few milliseconds. The fast-changing magnetic field causes neurons in your brain to fire and create signals. Magnetic stimulation is a powerful technique, but how deep does it go in your brain? And does it affect parts of the brain that we don't want to target? The answer is that stimulation generally activates a small, shallow area in the brain, but human anatomy helps us out. Most of our brain's processing, including vision and sound, all happens on the thin, winding outer layer called the cortex. Some of this layer is close enough to the skull to target with magnetic stimulation. But what about the equally important deep regions in our brain which process memory and emotion? Well, we can reach these deep regions by targeting areas on the cortex which are connected through white matter. White matter is like the Ethernet cables that wire up different parts of our brain. These special neurons allow the brain to form connections and different networks, allowing regions to talk to each other, forming our consciousness and our thoughts. And TMS is a great tool to study these connections and how they change through life and illness. At our lab, we use an MRI scan to map out our brains to find regions to target. It's actually really fun to target the part of your brain that controls movement. The stimulation is precise enough to twitch individual fingers on your hand without your conscious control. And when you experience it for yourself, it's mind-boggling. In fact, most people can try brain stimulation safely. The most common side effects include headaches or twitching, which usually disappear over time. We can also use this amazing tool for therapeutics. Repetitive magnetic stimulation is already used as a treatment for major depression. We target the prefrontal cortex near your forehead. We don't exactly know how it works, but we think it reduces symptoms by changing how connected this region is to the rest of your brain. By stimulating the same region repeatedly, we can encourage neurons to form new connections and discard old ones, thereby changing the behavior of our brain long term. This crucial concept is called neuroplasticity. We can use it to reshape the brain's communication network, just like we can reshape plasticine in our hands. We can take it a step further and read out the brain's electrical activity using EEG. Neurons communicate through tiny electrical pulses, and when these neurons are synchronized, we can record these pulses through sensors on your scalp. Picture this. Your doctor taps your knee with a rubber hammer to measure your reflex. Similarly, we are safely zapping a tiny region of your brain, then measuring the entire electrical response over 1 second. The shape of that response is like the signature of the brain. Reading these brain signatures can distinguish youth with depression, which could be a huge leap forward for accurate diagnosis. We can collect someone's brain data combined with what treatment plan worked for them. After collecting thousands of data points, we could recommend similar treatments to others with similar brain signatures. This could enhance traditional psychiatric assessments to find the right treatment on the first try. And we can measure progress in a whole new way. Just like our handwritten signatures improve from when we're in grade 2 to when we're in university, our brain signatures can improve with time and with treatment. Tracking these signatures can even help us develop new interventions that target specific deficiencies of the brain. We can learn so much from these brain responses, but there's a catch. We have very little idea of how stimulating one region results in activity across the entire brain. To add to this confusion, magnetic stimulation creates a large clicking noise which can activate parts of the brain that process sound. This interferes with the signal that we actually want to record. We need more information to pull apart these signals and get a clear scan of our brain signature. Scalp recordings are fast, portable, and relatively cheap, but are not precise enough to locate activity from individual brain areas. So we need to go a level deeper. And by deeper, I mean underneath our skulls. Our research participants are getting their brains mapped before surgery with hundreds of sensors spread all over their cortex and deep brain regions. Just like humans communicate over Wi-Fi, radio, and cellular, the brain communicates at many different frequencies too. With this technique, we record the fastest brain activity at 250 times a second. If recording from the scalp is video from an old Nokia phone, recording from inside the skull is full screen, high definition. Despite a new set of challenges, we still apply magnetic stimulation to our participants. We can finally see how activating one brain region causes signals to spread across the entire brain. This new probing tool can help answer a variety of questions about how we think, we feel, and move through the world. I'd like to use this tool to isolate unwanted auditory and sensory signals from magnetic stimulation. We can learn so much more about these signals and then subtract them from our scalp recordings. This will help us measure accurately the brain signatures of anyone without having to do any surgery. By combining these different ways to measure and modulate the brain, we can arrive at a deeper truth. And it takes an interdisciplinary team of experts to make it happen. I'd like to acknowledge our collaborators across Canada, the University of Iowa, the Mayo Clinic, and the eBrain Lab. There is a global network of doctors, neuroscientists, psychologists, and engineers exploring these new technologies, including many I haven't covered today. And there's still a lot of engineering work left to be done, like building portable sensors and stimulators to make it easier for patients. Ultimately, our goal is to translate our findings from the research lab to the doctor's office, so that one day in the future, treating mental illness might be as simple as getting glasses. And yet, there is so much that we can do today. I invite you to show compassion and understanding to yourselves and your loved ones. Join the fight to eliminate the stigma around mental illness. Support policies that reduce poverty, end systemic oppression, and make mental health services accessible to everyone. Remember that a healthier society goes hand in hand with healthier brains. While our research isn't quite ready to meet the public, it presents the potential to build an intelligent mental health care system of the future. Wouldn't it be amazing if our loved ones could have access to rapid and effective treatments to live their incredible lives to the fullest? It sure would have been great if my grandpa could have gotten the right treatment to enjoy his last few years. He was a philosopher, intrigued by the human condition, and I would remember him reading Stephen Hawking, Dostoevsky, and Tagore to me growing up. He would have been thrilled if his treatments and diagnostics came from unraveling our incredible, complex brains. I'm so excited to continue my work at the intersection of technology, biology, and the social sciences to help create a healthier society, one where we can all get the treatment that we need and we deserve. Thank you.